You are listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast brought to you by Birmingham Live. Hello and welcome to a live recording of the Claret and Blue podcast. I can't even get the name of the podcast right. Oh God, just before we start this I did a big sigh thinking I don't really want to talk about Wolves again. And we're not going to focus on it too much. We're obviously going to look ahead to Spurs and we're going to talk about Matty Cash's new contract as well. But it does feel, like I said in our post-match debrief that we did after the Wolves game, me and Ash, it feels like Villa are kind of plodding along to the end of the season now. And I said we won't go down. Obviously, we're not getting to Europe. The best we can do is probably ninth place. And somebody in the comments said, "Oh, we're not even safe yet." And I kind of thought, bloody hell! I think we're on 36 points, so I'm pretty sure Watford are on 22. I want to say so. There's a 12, 14 point gap. I mean, if we do get relegated from this position, I'm going to look the biggest mug going, but I'm pretty sure we are safe at this point. But yeah, Villa plodding on to the end is how I feel it is. And it feels like, as I started this with a big sigh and couldn't even get my words out, this podcast feels like I'm plodding on as well. Pat, how are you, mate? Take the reins.
I'm exactly the same. It's a bit laborious, isn't it? Just like the players are like they're basically on holiday already, especially in the first half against Wolves, didn't they?
Yeah.
But yeah, nothing to play for. I'd like to say there's no danger of relegation. In my head, there's no danger of relegation. I feel like if Newcastle fans are all just talking about next season and they're completely fine with it, we're fine. I don't think there's any panic about that.
If we don't get 4 points in the remaining 8 games, then we have to go down.
Drastically wrong with the club if that doesn't happen. But I've got no worries about relegation. And I think if you offered me the season to finish today, I'd probably take it, to be honest. Yes, I don't know why Villa are playing like they're on holiday. Like I was watching Crystal Palace last night, and I know they've got an FA Cup semi-final, I think. But I was just really jealous of the atmosphere and like their style of play. And like I know we've beaten them, but they just seemed up for it, and we never seem up for it. These in the past 3 games, I think Southampton was a stark contrast, wasn't it? Leeds, that little run with Brighton as well. And he might need us to go back to the 4-3-1-2 for it to get back that way. But the past 3 games have been a bit tough to watch, haven't they?
Well, now the both of us have just hyped up the remaining season, hyped up how thrilled we are to be doing a podcast. So stick with us for the next 25 minutes or so. Jealous of Crystal Palace. Although, to be fair, there was a stage of the season, or maybe when we were getting promoted, or even still in the Championship, where if you'd have said, end of March, early April, you're pretty much safe, and you're going to have a middling end to the season and finish 12th, whatever. There's probably a time when we'd have bit your arm off for that and said, "Yeah, all right, that's such a boring, consolidating mid-table season." Yeah. I think the thing that's disappointing, and it's what me and Ash spoke about the other day, is that we'll be. I think it's our 4th. I still can't work out, mate. We'll be starting our 4th season in the Premier League in August, and it kind of feels like we've not really made that much progress. Like if you kind of think, right, get up, stay up, push into Europe, like that should have been this year was the year that we kicked on, and we haven't really. So I feel like that's why it feels a little bit disappointing, a little bit kind of turgid and slow and a bit of a slog to get to the end. But a couple of years ago, you'd have taken,
wasn't it? It was
taken that.
Was it 3 weeks before the season Grealish went, or even sooner than that? I can't remember. And then obviously November, I think Smith was sacked, wasn't he? Mm-hmm. And then Gerrard came in. So there's 2 big changes for the club. So I think the kind of progress that we probably wanted in terms of Europe was a bit ambitious. But as you said, I would have taken a boring season 4 years ago. But I think next season is probably where the pressure builds a bit more, especially after Gerrard's first summer transfer window in charge. That's probably when the pressure will ramp up to try and push forward.
Well, someone who's part of that project still and willing to stick around, he doesn't feel like it's a slog, is Matty Cash, who yesterday signed a contract extension for 5 years, so matching Emi Martinez with the contract till 2027. That's great news, isn't it? Especially with however strong the rumours were or not with the Atletico Madrid interest, to have one of your players who's probably the most improved under Gerrard. Would get my vote for player of the season at the moment. And I said to you earlier that, kind of gets that by default, and that's not to disrespect Matty Cash. It's just that there's not been another standout player in my mind that I would vote for. So, player of the season, new contract, and willing to commit to Aston Villa and the project going forward. So internally at Aston Villa, they're still up for it. They still think there's a job to be done.
Yeah, definitely. I was getting quite worried about those rumours linking Cash with the move away. I thought it was one of those where Atletico Madrid is just one of those clubs, isn't it? A player probably isn't going to turn that opportunity down if it comes about. but Villa obviously acted quickly, got him tied down to a new contract. I know he's third in tackles in the league, second in blocks, third in interceptions, third in defensive pressures. So you can't really understate his defensive capabilities in the squad, which I think is the first role of a right back I'd want, to be honest. I think the attacking plays has come on leaps and bounds under Gerrard as well, to be honest. He's not so much got that first time cross into the box yet, but he's got that little cutback that he keeps utilising, doesn't he? I think that's a bit threatening until teams work that one out. But yeah, player of the season for me, definitely. I think from memory, in the back end of Smith's era, I think it's the West Ham game when we lost. I can't remember the score. It was disheartening and demoralising. I know that. But there was only one player. I remember sitting and watching it with my cousin, and I just remember thinking there's only one player here that's kind of standing out for me and it's going, grabbing the ball, driving forward. And it was Matty Cash. And he's carried that over into the Gerrard era as well. He's thrived, been one of our better players. So yeah, extremely happy that he's tied down. I think he's going to be a big piece moving forward.
I mean, right back player of the season screams mid-table, doesn't it? Unless you're Trent or whatever. Yeah, right back player of the season is boring. How many goals and assists is that for the season now? Have you got that? To hand?
He's got, I can't remember. I think it's 2 goals, isn't it? And then 3 assists, and then 1 in the Carabao Cup as well. 1 to Archer. That's probably my favourite one for him, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, my
do that more consistently. He'd probably be the complete right back, to be honest.
My point there really is that that's not really enough, is it? As much as we're saying player of the season, and he has been a good player all season and improved under Gerrard. If you're playing attacking fullbacks, a couple of goals and maybe a couple of assists. I mean, we should really have got the figures to hand here, but it's still not many. I know we're not. It's not like we're gonna Google it in a second, find out he's got like 12 assists or something stupid. It's a very few. That needs to be worked on, doesn't it? And that's something that he will work on over the summer. And if next season he's getting something like 4 goals and 9 assists, you'd say, oh yeah, that's a massive improvement. And I'm now going to Google how many he's got this year just to make sure we're not making ourselves look silly. It's 3 goals, 3 assists in the league and 1 in the League Cup. So yeah, as we suspected, not great. You probably want to. You'd at least want to double those assists next season, but he's here for the long term, hopefully. And like we said, that is a bit of promising news in what is a pretty rubbish month so far. Wolves, then you were there. I mean, that's even worse.
I was sadly in the home end for it as well. I'm just thinking, oh no, oh god, it's not a pen. Oh, what's he doing?
I mean, Molineux is one of my least favourite grounds I've ever been to be honest. So it's bad enough whether you're in the away end or the home end, regardless of the result. Me and Ash spoke about it. I feel like I've given my thoughts on the podcast already, but I will quickly go through them before we move on. But we'll get a fresh opinion first. How did you assess that game with your tactical head on?
The first 20 minutes were just disastrous, wasn't it? I think Luca Dean had a stomach problem, but it kind of showed he was getting torn to shreds on the left wing, and then slipping over from McGinn and Konza. Everyone just looked half asleep. It was just a disaster, wasn't it? But then the performance as a whole wasn't actually that bad. Like when you look at the general point of view, I think it was our second most creative game of the season. I think, in terms of shot creating actions, I think. If we had, I said before the game, the main main obstacle we were going to face was Jose Sarr in goal. I think he's got the highest save rate in the league. I said maybe the finishing of Danny Ings might have helped. And if he was on the end of that one with Watkins, or one of the ones Watkins had, maybe we would have somehow scraped a point. But it's just one to move on. Wolves got something to play for, and it showed it, but we did hand it to them on a plate at times with the slips. And I remember watching the Ashley Young one as well. Everyone stood up, and obviously I wasn't that into the Wolves attack, so I was kind of still sat down at the time, watched the ball float over. I thought, I'm just going to put that out for a corner, it'll be easy. And then just heard a roar all around me. I was like, how on earth has that just happened? But yeah, it was a disaster. I didn't think the Watkins penalty was a penalty either. I thought Watkins kind of bundled into the keeper. I thought that was lucky for us. I thought VAR might overturn that, but yeah, another day Watkins puts his chances away and we win 3-2. So there you go.
It's weird how you say that from the stats point of view, it wasn't that bad a performance in terms of creativity, especially making chances and stuff. I know you posted, I think, McGinn's stats, and there was somebody else. Sansa, I think, did like the most pressures of the side so far. But it didn't feel like that I don't know. I don't know how I explain that, and I think that the
I know
general
what you
mood
mean.
amongst the fan base thinks that was a pretty rubbish result and performance. But for some reason, the stats show that like McGinn, it looked like McGinn had a decent game, but then he's playing number 6 with like, what did he have like the most progressive carries or something like that? But it's like that's good, looks good for John McGinn, but not as a number 6. You don't want your defensive midfielder being the one that's been the most creative. So maybe it's misleading to say that the stats look good for certain players, but in the system they're playing in, McGinn shouldn't be leading those statistics because he should be leading tackles won and ball retention, or I don't know what stats exist for defensive players.
He did lead tackles won as well, to be fair.
Did he? Okay, fair enough.
I think it was more that we were just so like we were panicking a bit, and McGinn's natural instinct is to get on the ball, drag us forward. But the problem started arising when he's the deepest player, but he'd often receive the ball, wouldn't he, with his back to goal and 2 players closing him down, and then he gets issues just start stem from that, don't they? So I think it was the wrong call to put him as the number 6. To be honest, it's not his position, is it? Douglas Luiz, I don't know why he got dropped. If he's fit enough to be on the bench, I don't know if there was an injury or if it was just a statement made by Gerrard in terms of the contract negotiations or something. I don't know. But yeah, Douglas Luiz, I thought we looked a lot better when he came on and we reverted back to our normal system. But as a whole, I thought maybe the main thing we missed was Danny Ings and going to this 4-3-1-2, as I've said. Because this 4-3-2-1 is just not working, really, is it?
It's interesting, the Luiz thing. I think we spoke about it, so forgive me if I'm repeating myself to people that have already listened to the post-match Wolves one, but I understand dropping Luiz. Like when the team news came out, I thought, yeah, fair enough. Like I'm not against him being dropped, just trying something a bit different, give Sanson some game time. Yeah, I think on the face of it, you go, yeah, fair enough. That makes sense. You've got to make changes, but that change doesn't just result in dropping Luiz for Sanson and trying something different. It moves McGinn back to a position he's not used to either. Yeah, and we all know that Douglas Luiz isn't a number 6, but neither's John McGinn. So that substitution doesn't change anything. You'd been better off putting Luiz in there and swapping Sanson for McGinn if you just want to change it for the sake of fresh legs and stuff. So that was the wrong call in the end. Before the game, you think, yeah, fair enough, but not for putting John McGinn at number 6. There was a massive comment on the YouTube video of the last one from a fan who watched him up in Scotland. I think he's from Scotland themselves, saying like he plays for Scotland in the international breaks as number 10 effectively and scores goals. And then he comes back to Villa and plays number 6. It's just not his role. And I think McGinn's been in for a bit of stick after the game, and for a fair amount of the season. To be fair, I don't know. I just don't get it. I don't know what we're trying at the moment, and that's probably the most disappointing thing. When Joe first comes, it's about attacking fullbacks and 2 number 10s, and then we don't play 2 number 10s anymore. And when we do, they don't really play together. We've got Bailey kind of playing second striker, winger, number 10, all rolled into one. It's just weird. Like, where's like the tactical flexibility here to be a bit smart about things? It just feels like we cobbled something together and we went, yeah, go on, let's give that a go. And
pull it out of a hat or something like that.
Bizarre.
I 100% agree. I think first game of the season we played McGinn in a 4-2-3-1 as one of like the 2 holding midfielders. He struggled then, and then McGinn. Do you remember that Southampton game where Smith did the same thing? It was just like a panic formation change. Did the same, put McGinn as one of the 2 in a double pivot. So let alone as playing like as a pairing, as like a defensive midfielder, he struggles. But then he puts him as the lone central defensive midfielder, and it was always going to go one way, wasn't it?
When you'd be better off having Coutinho and McGinn behind the striker, and just playing Sanson and Luiz Ramsey as a 3, and having McGinn further forward. Cause that's where his game is. That's where he's better in terms of dragging us forward and stuff. He's not the last line of defence before the centre half, screening the back 4. It's bizarre to have John McGinn playing that deep for me. And if it's a case of McGinn or Luiz to play that deeper role, it's Luiz every day. No, I'm not even a massive fan of Luiz. It's just he's better than McGinn at number 6.
Yeah, best of a worst case scenario, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Lesser of 2 evils.
Let's talk about Kalvin Phillips, I suppose, as a natural successor to our midfield issues. Lots of paper talk at the moment. 60 million bids. Should be less, to be honest, for those shoes he was pictured wearing the other week. They were straight out of the Wombles, weren't they? Then bizarre, but yeah, 60 million. Again, for me, this is paper talk. I think you've looked into what he could offer and stuff like that, and yes, he is a good player. don't think he's worth 60 million. I don't particularly think he would leave Leeds for Villa if Leeds stay up. I think there'll be bigger clubs. I think Man United will potentially link with him today. And Arsenal potentially looking for a midfielder. I think there'll be other clubs looking for Phillips, which give him better opportunities in terms of European football. And I also don't agree that 60 million is a price that you pay for a player like that. I think you're looking at like 40 million tops. But yeah, tell me what you think and what you'd offer, and let's take it from there and kind of squash this one as quick as we can.
Well, I'm going to probably oppose the view here a bit. We were quoted about 30 million, I'm pretty sure, when they were in the Championship, weren't they? So I feel like 60 is probably just a natural progression for England's Player of the Year last season. And Leeds probably know that he's exactly what we need, and we probably will play over the odds for it. He's someone who will sit in front of the defence, act as that anchor, break play up. Just all around, his defensive capabilities are quite amazing. I think third in the top 1% of midfielders for pressures, top 3% for blocks, top 15% for tackles, and top 18% for interceptions. There's limitations with how he progresses the ball. I don't think he's that progressive player that's going to drive us forward. I think if he did come into the side, he'd just be dishing it off to the players around him, like Ramsey, McGinn, and Sanson. But that's probably how it helps Villa, if that makes sense. So
yeah, I think that makes sense. That's what Villa need. They need someone in there to sit things down. I understand that, and I think that's fair enough. But I think you can get that role elsewhere for less than 60 million. You effectively just described Marvelous Nakamba, who we've already got.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm not saying that Nakamba's the answer. We still seriously need to sign, a midfield enforcer in the summer. But I mean, it's not our job. It's not my job to sit here and give you 3 or 4 names we could do. But you've got scouting networks, massive operations in football clubs, and the best we can find is Kalvin Phillips right on our doorstep for 60 mil. Yeah. Like, we can't find a Kalvin Phillips equivalent from Europe for 30 or 25. Like, I think there's better value for money out there if you go looking for it.
Yeah, there is that, but I think that might just be another transition away from the general transfer strategy that they want to win now. Basically, to be honest, I think they're probably prepared to pay an extra 20 million just so we are better next season. They know someone who knows the league well. He's an England international. We don't get there being bad. Yeah, he was sensational in the Euros.
Yeah, he's a good player.
But as I said, it might solve a lot of problems, but it doesn't solve all of Villa problems. So, like, one player can't cover all the gaps that Luca Dean and Matty Cash provide if they bomb forward at the same time. I think you'd be putting a lot of pressure on someone to solve every single problem at Villa right now. But in terms of just having that extra line of defence ahead of the back four, I think he does solve that for Villa. Probably would improve us slightly, but you've got to build that around. And then you've got to factor in 60 million for him if we do pay it, and then the rumoured 33 million for Coutinho. That's 90 odd million. And then are we going to spend over 100 million in one summer transfer window? I mean, we're probably going to make player sales, but we're going to make, 30 million at most? So, I don't know. Would we splash it in 2 players when I think there's other areas we need as well? We might see a few surprise departures then to fund it. It's one of those.
James Vaughan says we want better quality players. We have to pay more money. Yeah, I agree with that. You do have to do that. It just, I don't know, just something about it doesn't quite sit right with me. With Phillips specifically, I'm not saying he's not a good player because he is. 60 million seems really steep. Would his injury record worry you a little bit? He's obviously missed a lot of this season. I think he missed a few games last season. I saw something that said he missed a certain percentage of Leeds games over the last 2 years, and that was like for a 60 million player who's only played X amount. Would that concern you at all? If it was him that we go for?
I don't know if it concerned me, but it obviously wouldn't concern the Villa owners who signed Danny Ings, who's got he's done both his knees, got severe knee injuries or something, or did the same knee over it. Just
same knee twice, I think.
So yeah, if they're willing to pay for that for Ings, then I'm sure they'd be fine with the Phillips.
That's not a great case study, is it? Really, because Danny Ings hasn't really worked out, to be honest.
What is going on?
Let's talk about Danny Ings and kind of our selection for Saturday night. I think it is the game, 5:30. Ings, I mean, people have seen it by now, but at the time we didn't know that his partner had given birth on this. When did we play? Did we play on Saturday? Yeah, Saturday. So like the Friday night or the early hours of Saturday morning. Ings wanted to still be involved and play, which I think is commendable. But I don't have any problem with him having the game off for that. So, barring the fact that he's not got injured in training or anything this week out of the blue, I assume he's back in the fold for Saturday's game. Now, obviously, Watkins scored that penalty. He did have a couple of chances that he could have done better with. If you were in charge, are you changing the systems to up front and they both play together, or are you swapping him straight for Watkins?
Yeah, I think we've looked best when we played in that 4-3-1-2, as I said. The Southampton game I was there. I loved that. It was probably one of the most exciting games I've watched this season for a while, from my memory. Probably the Boxing Day one against Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
Worked well against Brighton. Worked well against Leeds. We look quite secure defensively. We look threatening going forward, and it gets Watkins and Ings playing together, which has been the problem all season, and playing well at that. The only issue with that is, like we said earlier, do you get Coutinho in or do you get Buendia in? Or do you even try... I've seen a few people mentioning that Buendia could maybe come in for like a Ramsey role. He likes players playing ahead of him, like in that number 8 role, threading balls into like he did for Watkins against Wolves. He's got the defensive work rate to play number 8, just whether or not we want to trial something like that. I do think Sanson should start again as well. So whether or not you're giving McGinn a rest, who's played a lot of football internationally, and for Villa, I think he's played most of the games, apart from when he was out with COVID and stuff. So yeah, it's nothing to lose really in the back end of the season, is there? So maybe he should start trying.
Really.
I think Gerrard commented and was saying, "Oh yeah, I've got to look at Sanson sometimes." You probably will see an extended run from Sanson at the end of this season. And yeah, trial things. I don't think I'd be going for like a Tim Irabunum at CDM yet. Yeah, Louise, get 2 different number 8s either side of him, see what happens.
If I'm going to skirt over number 10 just for a second, so I'm going to come back to that. If Nakamba's fit and ready, would he come in for a start? He played 50, 60 minutes for the under-23s on... When was that? Was that Monday? Was it yesterday?
Yeah,
last week?
Last week.
I'm all over the place.
It's all merging into one, isn't it?
Yeah, Nakamba's playing for the under-23s at some point. As long as he's not got injured, would he come in for you? For McGinn, maybe?
I'll probably leave it maybe one more game, get another week's training in. Don't want to risk him. Maybe as a substitute or something if you need him. Get him on the bench. But then again, if they're fit enough to go on the bench, they're fit enough to play, aren't they? So maybe we'll give him a run out. As I said, nothing to lose, but maybe if he just didn't want to risk Nakamba again, risk losing him again, yeah, I'll be fine with Douglas Luiz coming back in. I thought he played well when he came on.
Yeah. I was going to say exactly the same. I'd have Luiz from McGinn, to be honest. So I want to see more Sanson, because like you said, I don't see the point of him being around if he's going to have one game and then go missing for 10. Or if he's fit, keep playing him and let's see what he's made of, because we need to know whether he's going to be here next season, basically. Mm-hmm. McGinn didn't have a great game, I didn't think, despite the positive stats that we posted. So I'll be having Luiz as the 6, which again, I've said a million times, I don't think he is a 6, but he's the best 6 we've got until Nakamba's fully fit, with Ramsey and Sanson as the 8s. And I'd want Ings and Watkins up front together, because that's where it looks like it has kind of started to work out of nowhere. And then that leaves you with not one number 10. Who is it for you, Coutinho or Buendia? Just give me a snapshot answer first, and then we'll react to that.
As the 10, it's still Coutinho for me. I don't think you can leave him out. I think he's just got that game-winning factor about him, especially at Villa Park. Like this, I saw a tweet, and it was like, outside of Villa Park, he's just like not the same player. Villa Park is absolutely stellar, isn't he? So just keep him going. But yeah, I would. For me, going back to, I'd trial Buendia as like a number 8. I think. So
you'd have like Luiz, Sanson, Buendia as a 3, effectively.
Yeah. I think Ramsey definitely needs a rest. I think he's played more than double the amount of minutes this season. He's slowly fading out of games with each performance. I think he just does need a rest. He had the international break where he didn't get one either. He's playing. I think he played one game for England, so I'd just give him a rest and trial something new.
There's a comment from Michael. He says Chambers a 6. I actually think Chambers might start centre back, and we'll come to that in a second. I'd have Buendia over Coutinho for this one, just because he's come on a few times and I've kind of thought, oh yeah, he's too good to be sat on the bench. And I know you could say the same about Coutinho if you switch the roles around, but Coutinho hasn't really done a lot for.
Yeah, well, he subbed in for Coutinho, so maybe that's a hint.
But
Bailey, did he?
there's the kind of that thought process to go like he's on loan. We've got to try and impress him. We want him to fall in love with the club and know that he's going to get game time. You don't bench Coutinho if he's fit, unless you know he's not signing next year. In which case, yeah, let's start phasing him out. Yeah, I don't know. Just try something different. We've lost 3 in a row, haven't we? So I think that gives you a bit. Well, yeah, exactly. I know. I think someone said that if we lose Saturday, Gerald will be on the same record as Smith was when he lost. I think it was 1-2, draw 1, lost 6, or something like that. Yeah. Difference that it was 5 in a row for Smith, and it would only be 4. I mean, it's only 4 in a row this week.
Progress.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're not going to sack Gerald now anyway, so let's just forget about that. I'll just try Buendia. Buendia behind the 2 strikers. This is your moment. The tea time game at home. You've had a break. Come and impress. Show me why I'm not going to pick Coutinho going forward. Coutinho and Gerald have obviously got a great relationship. Show me why you should play. That is what Gerald should be saying to Buendia. Then I'd have Luiz, Ramsey, and Sanson as a 3. Back 4, I assume Dina's got over his diarrhea problem or whatever he had. So he comes back in at left back. I mean, I said afterwards on Saturday, you can't help it if you come down with like a sickness bug or whatever. But
surely you knew that before the game.
To go off with again, it makes it sound really flaky. But to go off in the game he did with a hamstring injury, and you kind of think, he's probably going to be out for 6 weeks, and he's playing for France like the week later. You think so injured, you got to come off, and then you can play 90 minutes the next week. That's annoying. Yeah. Then he comes back for Villa and plays 12 minutes before thinking, I need a poo, and he's got to go off again. Like.
Didn't fancy it, did it?
Yeah, again, it feels so flaky to me. I know you can't help it if you're ill, but it is starting to add up as in like, I doesn't quite fancy it. I'm gonna feign injury or whatever. Anyway, he comes back in because he's better than Ashley Young, so that's that sorted. Matty Cash, the new contract starts at right back, and then it's Mings and Konsa, who arguably neither have been great, really. There's a comment here saying Mings' performance has dropped off. I don't think Konsa's been as good as he was last year by any stretch of the imagination.
Calm and composed player this season as he was in ones prior, is he?
You'd always, if you were ranking the 2, you always put Konsa above Mings. I don't really think there's a massive difference. I still do, but it's the gap between the 2 is much smaller this year than it would have been last year. Like if you were looking to sell both, Konsa's still worth more. Just not been as good this year. So I think Chambers might come back in because it happened before. Chambers comes in when he's suspended. We've won a couple of games in a row and he's out the side and we've lost a couple. I'm not saying it's down to Chambers, but there's every right to say, look, you played well when you were in, you come back in this week. So for me, that's what 3 changes. Luiz, Chambers and Buendia, Owings as well for Bailey. So 4 changes for me is what I'd do. Because like you said, we're not really playing for a fat lot. We're at home. There's only a few home games left. I think there's 4 maybe at home. Liverpool, Burnley,
Palace,
and Tottenham. So that's at least 4. So you've got limited time at home to impress your fans, put on a display, entertain. So go out there on the night game, show us what you got, and try and win the game. That's what Villa have got to do. So I'd make a few changes. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it, to be honest. Do you want to give us a score prediction while I check my notes?
Against an informed Tottenham team, I feel like we never beat Spurs. Danny Ings likes to goal against Spurs. I think he scored 6 against them, and that's the joint most against any club in his career with Everton. So maybe his return, new baby on the scene, he's all fired up.
Yeah, baby celebration.
Yeah, baby, the one with all ball under the shirt. Yeah. Oh, that's pregnant, isn't it? I'll go 2-1 Villa, a lucky 90th minute winner just to set the crowd.
That'd be great. Yeah, I'd love a 90th minute winner. I'm going to go, my realistic head, I'm going to go with a 1-1. But yeah, 2-1 to Villa as the optimistic one. It's a prize win, said Matthew, which would be lovely. I just checked my notes, and there was one thing I would quickly wanted to ask you, just as we approach half an hour. I want to kind of just quickly get your thoughts on who you'd be most worried about leaving now. This is totally out of the blue, but obviously transfer window's coming up in, I think it's 9 weeks or something. Cash has just signed a contract who probably would have been the ones that you'd look at and think, if he leaves, that's a bit of a gap that Villa need to fix. But we were talking earlier in the week or last week that if you'd have said, Watkins might leave this summer, or McGinn or Mings or whoever, if you go back 18 months, that would have been a big blow to have lost someone like that. Whereas now, my kind of feeling towards it is that pretty much anyone in this squad is replaceable at this point. Martinez is down to a contract. He's a big player. You wouldn't want to lose him. Cash, I feel the same way. Then it's probably Konsa, who's probably third for me, someone I wouldn't want to lose. Then after that, kind of shrug my shoulders and think, yeah, if they leave and we get good money for them, I feel like we can replace them, because this year they've all been worse than they were last year. So quickly, your thoughts on your how you kind of assess the squad, basically.
Yeah, the main ones were Martinez and Cash. That probably a few months ago I'd be thinking, oh no, we're in trouble here. I think they were both linked to Atletico Madrid as well. So we've done well to tie those down. They're the main ones for me. Konsa, I think he was linked to Liverpool, wasn't he? And obviously that was quite scary. I think there was like a 50 million price tag put on him as well, or the rumours. I don't think
we still get 50 million for him.
No, I don't think we would. Not in this form. Like, people were annoyed that he didn't get called up to England. I was just thinking, what's he like done to deserve an England call up so far? Like, for a while he wasn't getting in the squad, was he? He's got 2 red cards this season. It's underwhelming, to say the least. I don't think they'd become looking for him now. I still think he's a vital part and a really good player, and he'll be starting for us next season. I wouldn't sell him at all, but I don't think we've got any worries of him leaving. I'd still want to tie Watkins down to another contract approaching his prime. You know, he's still in the England squad, around about there. I think it's just been a disrupted season this season, and he's had to get used to a new system. The signs that he's getting there, he's making the runs, he's getting the chances, and I think the goals will eventually flood in maybe next season. Gets a proper pre-season in. But yeah, Watkins is the main one for me, probably outside of the obvious ones. Other than that, obviously I'd want McGinn to stay. I still want McGinn to stay part of the squad. Buendia, I'd want Buendia to stay, but these aren't players that I'm worried someone's going to come in and swoop for.
Yeah.
I mean, McGinn was linked with United. I don't think they'd come for him now. And
certainly not for that price tag.
Yeah. Other than that, it's just about assessing the squad. I'd just be getting rid of the deadwood. I can't really see a future for Bertrand Traore. Leon Bailey in this system, I don't see him ever playing as like he did against Wolves as the striker. I don't know how he played 90 minutes for us against Wolves. I don't know how he got brought off, because I thought he was pretty non-existent for me in that game. I just didn't see much of him. I know he had that shot saved by Saab. Other than that, I think people always bring up his pace and the energy or the flair he brings. He rarely takes a player on. I just haven't seen much. He might not be match sharp, but for me, he's just not really grabbing that spot down. It's probably down to the system, to be honest. I think he needs to be played as a normal traditional winger with people overlapping and people creating space for him to operate within. Because this inside forward business and striker, he's getting the ball with his back to goal. He can't hold it up, can he? He's getting no space to operate in. I remember him running down the channel the other day against Wolves with no support and 3 players around him. I was just like, this is only going to go one way, isn't it? And there was absolutely nothing. And you can't blame him for that. It's just a difficult system for him to play in, I think. And I think there is a quality player there, but I just don't think this current formation suits him. Yeah. So whether or not we change it or in the future it comes out and you get the best out of him just remains to be seen. But yeah, that's how I assess the squad, to be honest.
It's a big transfer window, isn't it? Because there's a lot of players that you'd look at and think, oh yeah, quite like them around the squad still. But you mentioned Ollie Watkins specifically. If someone comes in for 35, 40 million and says we want Watkins, I won't be that against saying, yeah, okay, I think we can replace him with that kind of cash. But somebody like a McGinn, who would have been a target for Man United 2 years ago for stupid money, like 40 million, wasn't it? I think the rumours were.
I think even Ralph Rangnick wanted him.
You're not going to get that kind of money from him now. So if it's McGinn is going to leave for 10 mil, I'd rather keep him for that price. So it's going to be a big window for Gerrard and the recruitment people at Villa. So that's why they've got the job, and we just sit here and talk about it because I don't want to deal with that. So we'll call it a day there on this podcast. Don't know whether we'll do another one pre-Spurs, but if we do, follow the pages and all those kind of things, and you'll see it first. And we will be back on probably Saturday night after Villa play Spurs. I don't know. There's conversations to be had outside of the podcast as we plan the rest of our week. But yeah, thank you very much for tuning in. As always, we'll see you again at some point in the next few days. Thank you for watching, and see you later. Thank you for listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please do let us know. We love hearing your feedback. We'll be back soon with another episode, but until then, up the Villa.